Hello, I'm Professor Satterwhite, and today we're going to talk about the zine Cometbus. If you're not familiar with the zine, a zine is a small underground publication that is not necessarily done totally by punks, but it's mostly within the punk culture, at least in our modern concept. Although it does have a history that goes back to the science fiction era, then even goes back further into political pamphlets of the 1700s. But nonetheless, we're going to work with something much more modern. So Cometbus is the oldest zine that is continuously in print, or at least one of the oldest zines is continuously in print, and by far it's the most popular, most famous of zines. And this is issue 52. Aaron Cometbus, the author, is continuously putting these issues out. So when you're looking at this, I want you to look at this as one separate piece. Other issues of Cometbus are cover many different issues. Zines in general cover many different topics, so Cometbus is an example of that. This zine started in the early 1980s and is, and again, is currently still in publication with several other issues since this one. This one, however, is a novel, which is one of the reasons why we're going to talk about it in this class. The Spirit of St. Louis is a fictionalized story of a punk scene and a number of the characters within that punk scene. So what I want you to look at when you're looking at this story is I want you to look at the individual characters, because although we look at this as something that's based in a specific subculture, that you can also take this outside of the subculture and you can look at it in many other contexts. One of the other contexts, or maybe another example that you might think of, would be if you ever read John Steinbeck. If you look at John Steinbeck and John Steinbeck's work in particular, I'm thinking of Tortilla Flat or Cannery Row, that this is similar, in that way, where you have a number of different characters who come in and out of the story, and it's starting to tell this larger arch of a story. So when you're looking at this, I want you to think about that, but also I want you to think about this as part of a larger story, part of a larger narrative, but at the same time I want you to think of it as specifically rooted within punk culture, because if you take the punk out of it, then it's not quite the same thing, and if you but at the same time, if you take the stories out of it, it's also not the same thing too. So it's something for you to consider as you're taking a look at this. So those are some of the main things I want you to look at when we're covering Cometbus. Again, there's a number of different topics within here, everything from love, hate, the music scene itself, and probably the biggest thing that you'll notice in here is the lack of music within this. When people expect to see a story that's based in the punk scene, we expect to have a lot of rock, we expect to see a lot of people play music and different talks about bands, and that comes up within the text. So there may be some things that you may have to look up, there may be some things that you might not be familiar with, but by and large, just get into the story, move into the characters. You might have to write down some, because some of the names, there are a number of characters in here, so you might have to remember some of the names, so it might be in your best interest to write some down. But nonetheless, you're going to see a story that's rooted within punk subculture, and I hope you enjoy it.